Are we alive? Huh. Well, it says we are. Ooh. Ew. Right. So, here we are, Stillsville. And I'm just having lunch, I guess, right now. I'm bowl cereal. Having a bowl of cereal right now. I cannot begin to tell you how difficult this place has been. It has been a right pain in the butt. This thing is just not wanted to get put together right, and it's been driving me nuts. Just because here I am searching up pictures. There's the hell is that? Anyways, as I was saying, finding pictures of the house from all angles. I don't know if I should have this box or if I should take this one away. Because this appears to no longer exist, this box here, in the first floor. And there's some older pictures of it where there's a box here too, like this, just a box room. And they're sort of used like outside storage kind of deal. That makes sense. Because why wouldn't you? In a situation like this anyways, it makes sense. Still, it's weird. It's weird as hell. People are weird. It's a place built back in the 20s. There's some entrepreneur cat wanted to have a skit, and a couple of the more well-to-do members of society decided to finance him and have him throw together the original Stillsville, which was a lot of summer cottages for the rich folk. There had always been some kind of a fishing post out here in the ocean where Stillsville is IRL, because that it's a pretty popular place. It's right there in the shallows on the Miami flats, I should say. So you could see down, say, 30 foot at one time, or humans really made the water a little too murky. Or whatever the case may be. And as a result, folks realized this and exploited it. And one of the first permanent buildings, or, well, I shouldn't say permanent, but one of the more iconic first buildings was the Caveat Bay Club, or the Caveat Club. It was a boating club that was also a bar. And because not a lot of politicians locally knew what was out there, because it kind of been sort of done illegally at the time. Yeah, Stillsville is an interesting story. It wasn't really technically within the range where any crimes could be punished for, because if you, as a county, cannot charge someone, I don't think anyways, that is in international waters. No one can. And while technically not international waters, it was close enough where people with a boat could get a drink. Then the war started. And well, that was right about the time Prohibition came to an end. And when it finally did, we were gearing up for war. And by the time that came rolling around, most of the places were just homes. And once the war was over, people started moving out there because the laws hadn't been changed or amended yet. So all during the 50s and early 60s, there was a lot of homes built out on the sticks. They just got some building permits for renting the equipment to slam the pylons down and throw up a house. The ones that have lasted this long are the ones on the concrete posts, and that's why most of these houses are concrete. Places that were built somewhere in the mid-60s, early 70s, those are the only ones left. I think the Hicks house, the brown one we're looking at right now, is the oldest of them all. Though I could be wrong. Because this is Lee Shaw House here. And this definitely says, stylistically speaking, I think it had a roof redone in the 80s, because I know this roof style was getting popular down there at that time. But places like this were, they've been there since the early 60s. Like this was the more iconic one. This is the A-frame house. And it's been there since the mid-60s. And it could be that this place has been there since then. Because between those three, there's a very similar style, very modern here, with a couple of exceptions. This one might be from the 30s. This might be one of the last old homes. I'm not sure. Because it's nothing fancy, it's nothing crazy. It just looks like, take away the stairwell, it looks just like a regular ranch house. So this could be from like the mid-late 50s. Man, country was really doing better back then. Yeah. Could also be totally wrong, and Hicks' house could be the youngest of the lot. But I know they got to finalizing the amendments to the law to prevent any more places from being built out there, because it's about when the EPA came in and they had a shit fit with some of the things that were happening at that time. Then Andrew came through. And a bunch of other storms that came in before Andrew. During the 80s, a couple places were fixed up. People were still living in them. A couple storms came through and knocked a bunch of them down. Andrew doing the most damage. In fact, fly to it right now. Right, this way. This one here, Baldwin Sessions is that one there, the really weird one with all the weird shapes. That one's Bay Chateau. I forget the name of this one. But this is like one of the family name houses as well. I have no idea about when it was built, because this style was very popular from like the mid-50s all the way into mid-late 70s. This ranch style house. Hell, it's still kind of popular today. But this was like one of the older houses, and I tried to incorporate the tilted concrete dock thing here. I guess it'd be a porch. I think it was a boathouse at one point, if I had to guess. And you can just see passage of time on this one, because I did have exposed concrete. And exposed concrete, especially if it's like the preform holes. Yeah. They don't like the open salt. Because the outside will form a lot of sea growth. So much so that within 20 years, barnacles will be covering barnacles will be covering barnacles. And end up making this really hard calcification. Because the salt's going to naturally try and leach a little bit of the lime and calcium from the cement. And it wears it down. Softens the concrete. Makes it weak. So what ends up happening with it being exposed like that, because obviously they paint the outsides of them, and with it being exposed like that, it just crumbles. It rounds off. It erodes at a remarkably fast rate, exposed to the open salt like that. So all you get is just brown, nasty wire hanging out because it's reinforced concrete, right? That's all disgusting and frayed and just blech. And it rots pretty bad as a result, because then rust in the metal will expand, crack it, and yes, this has happened before with like pre-stressed steel cables submerged in concrete, because it's suspended under tension like that. It makes it stronger as a section, but the problem with that is that it also ends up causing failure, because if it gets water in it, the rust will expand. And there have been sections of bridge decks that have had that problem in the past, and it'll just destroy a long section of the deck. It's a fucking pain in the ass. Because then that means they have to pull up a lot of the existing stuff, lay down some new cable in its section, dig a ways back, and redo the cement. It's a fucking nightmare. So when it cracks, that lets more water in, and it just gets worse and worse and worse from there. Because the more water you can hold, the more iron oxide will form. Because that's all rust is a new element formed by water bonding to iron. Or rather, the oxygen in water binding with iron. Because iron has a bigger positive attraction, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And as a result, it'll pull oxygen, which is a smaller atom, off of hydrogen, and hydrogen will be released. And then forms a small chain and then breaks down at the atomical level. And that's all that orange stuff is. And in machining, like just to exemplify how much of an importance it is to minimize iron, is that with, say, a flywheel, which is steel, maybe it's a high nickel alloy, but usually it's a lot harder and a lot stronger than just pure iron. But there's still iron in there. And if it's a high carbon steel too, designed to take, say, heat or something like that, the application then makes it even more important for, say, something like brake rotors or a flywheel. And a common practice to do with the flywheel, if you pull it out of the junkyard, just to make sure that, one, you're getting past the crap, two, that when you're interacting with the new clutch material, that you're getting a flat bond, because if you get any kind of ridges, that means the disc flexes and that'll destroy your clutch. So it's done also to ensure that there's no warpage. And three, if there is any heat checking, which is where, say, the flywheel wasn't cleaned well, what'll happen is you'll get these burned spots where the heat was so intense from the friction that it just... Hey, Dad. Yeah, really, I'm still processing, mate. Yeah. The truth of the matter is, I never really asked too much for help because, well, I knew that you and Barb never really made a lot and you were saving up for it. I really didn't want to try and jeopardize that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, really. That's also one of the reasons why I didn't want to bother her so much. She's been through kids already. Doesn't she have kids that are... Yeah. Oh. Oh, wow. Really? Jeez. I thought she'd been with some dude in the past, had kids with, and they were already gone and grown. Huh. Damn. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Damn. Married that. Yeah, really. Alright, well, I'll see you around, Dad. Love you. Bye. Wow. Wow. Sorry, I needed a second there to gather myself there. For anyone wondering the context here, I've been, well, to put it bluntly, life has been absolute shit. And, well, I'm losing my house. Or rather, I should say I'm forced to sell the house. Because otherwise I'm just going to lose it and I'm going to be flat broke and make no money. And my father divorced my birth mother, and I lived with her for most of my life. No one can really replace Mom. Mom is always going to be Mom. But my father, when he finally got his life together, married this woman named Barb, and I figured, you know, it's Florida. The stereotype is there for a reason. It's anyone wondering what stereotype that is, it's the idea of Florida is the divorce state. Get married on spring break, divorced by Easter or something like that, or married on Easter, divorced by spring break. It was for a long time there was a pretty bad stereotype out there about South Floridians especially having way too many divorces, because you can see that so ever clearly in the Matthew McConaughey, Kate Hudson movie Fool's Gold, which plays heavily on that influence. Wait a second. No, that's right. Never mind. That's throwing me for a loop. Wait a second. You're not right. There. Oh. Fuck! right? Right now I can't remember. But, so, because she had mentioned that she had been there for so many years, my stepmother that is, when we spoke, I had assumed that she had, that she too was a divorcee, and that she had kids with another marriage, something got involved and the husband went away, kids were already grown, passed and through college, living their own lives. Because that's just the song and dance story that I heard growing up. That was a really common deal down in South Florida during the 90s. And even up until we left in the early noughties. And just found out, just right then, that she had never married before and never had any kids. And she's going out of her way to help a guy like me in the position I am. So, took me a minute to gather myself there. Because, anyways, where were we talking about Stiltsville? It's, let me get back on track here. Give me a second to gather my thoughts. Stiltsville. But yeah, back in Miami during that time, there was a whole bunch of shit that I remember and I noticed growing up. I was always that one kid that saw something like mentioned here or there, and I'd have a pretty good long-term recall on it. Fortunately, I have the short-term memory of a goldfish sometimes, and, well, we were talking something about Stiltsville, and I couldn't remember, but maybe I'll tell you a story instead. Because I'm in a bit of a storytelling mood. First, let's get back to the mainland. Alright. That is not where I wanted to go. Nor is that. Smack. Well, shit. I technically need to go up this way, actually. Now, a couple of things I've done is, there are a couple of buildings that I knew in real life. And I've tried to add a few of those buildings from when I knew in real life in Vice City. I mean, we're here to talk about Vice City, and well, the sign says it all. This was home sweet home growing up. We had our little couch here my grandfather slept on. We had our TV display here, all the movies that Mom had collected, and our main TV. This was a little kitchenette in here that I still need to add sinks. The fridge was right there. We had cooking area prep here, sink and the oven, stove right there. Actually, here. Listen here, you little bitch. Let's see, we want you. Alright, and brewing, right. This is actually bothering me, something fierce. And before you ask, yes, it was this tight. What I'm about to do here. Let's see. Yeah. No. Just like that. And yes, there was a light right there. I'm not joking. Let's see. We need you, and you. Just like that. And let's see. Then had about that many. Yeah, that's right. It was so nice growing up in the 90s, man. God, I'm having fucking flashbacks to my childhood. That's exactly it. And for a long time, my bedroom was this one. When I was old enough to have a bed anyways. Because when Mom and Dad were still together, I was a little kid. And there was a door. This outdoor, what am I doing in an outdoor? An iron door. There was this door right here that I was told never to open because literally that door was the other side of the house that connected the two apartments. This was what they had, and this is what we had. This was the bathroom. I'll get to that in a sec. Yeah, there's a window right there. Yeah, it was. Because the shower's right here. Or was it here? I remember the toilet here. Okay. Was there this gone there? There might have been. God damn it, now I'm having trouble remembering. Because that was the bathroom in the house, was this one right here. And, this is my bedroom most of my life growing up. I remember 3 lights up top, 2 lights up top here. And there was this really fucking, oh god, I grew up with it, so it's like very nostalgic to me, and I miss it so much. It was a flat screen shade that was made out of like bamboo strips that had been crushed, and it was brown. because I'll crush bamboo strips.